I suggest that we begin our deliberations dedicated to the global trends in healthcare. And today we have had a very interesting, productive, saturated day, and so we had a plenary session. So where all the present here participated, excellent. So heads of the governments, great, compelling presentations. The Minister of Health had a meeting participating Skvartsova, so the Minister of Health. And that was breakfast, and so we have a number of experts participating in the panel. So the leading specialists in the area of healthcare organization in Russia, and so then I will give them a chance to speak. And what's important is the leading international experts in this area. So we have here. So the subject matter is the global trends in healthcare. And before we begin, so we exchanged our international experts, and before we bring it to a logical completion, so it's very interesting to know that the vector of the development of the healthcare in Russia that we've been observing recently in Russia, so with a special stress on the value medicine and so innovative medicines, it meets the best practices, global practices of the world, and this is very nice to know. And so the World Health Organization's opinion thinks that we are in the top 3 in the area of the development of non-infectious diseases and other diseases. So we shared with our colleagues about the availability of high technology to our patients, and 2 numbers in 2008 when we started very actively working on this area of high-tech medical health provisioning within the framework of healthcare. So at that time in the Russian Federation we had only about 60,000 high-tech medical interventions. So in 2017, so we had 15 times as many interventions were done, almost a million. So then this year, so we'll come to a higher level of high-tech medical support, which meets the requirements of our population. So we are forming new organizational and the new types of technologies, and a very strong locomotive and driver of development of healthcare, both in a socially sensitive area, is the penetration of digital technologies, big data technologies. So we talk about the sustainable development of our industry. At the same time, we're very well aware that in order to meet the requirements of high efficiency, very important the role of medical professional community, introduction of the model of sustainable medical education needs to be done, and so then innovative development continues. So what we need is flexibility of the system and its readiness for change. So we need just to move over to the new types of approaches. So then the volume of interventions. So that when only one patient categorized and targeted to the value added medical support. So which we need to move over to this approach. Now let's move over to the presentations of our experts and give the key to Evgeny Shlekhto, so the key expert, the CEO of the National Medical Center, named after Almaz of St. Petersburg. So the academician of the Russian Academy of Sciences. So introducing him to our international colleagues, I'd like to sincerely say that Evgeny Vladimirovich in his presentation is going to talk about something that already has been introduced and deployed and implemented within the on the premises of his dear colleagues. So after your presentation, there is no need to say anything else. So because so that sums it up. It is true that we are living in an epoch when the patient-oriented medicine is being shaped. And so then value-added medicine is being introduced. But all this is going at the background with a difficult background of changes that are characterized in the world as so the advent of the high-tech technologies, new approaches, and innovative techniques. So then the new practices and new technologies being introduced sometimes goes at accelerated rate and so much faster than we can prepare and train our specialists. So there's a shortage of specialist technologies becoming more and more complicated. And what's important is so there is a certain a delay of professional community from the implementation of these technologies into the everyday activities. and medical support and services. So now we all target the changes of the paradigm of medicine and the formation of the medicine that is aimed at the result. And unfortunately, I will talk about the background. So then the population is, people are getting older, so then the lifespan is getting longer, and unfortunately burden is growing, so the structure of the patients is changing. So we have a greater share of old, more complicated diseases that require more financing. And so then 60% of the patients, so is 10% of the budget, and 40% is 20% of the budget. And so then heart failures, more hospitalizations, hospital stays, more financial support required because the medicine is getting more complicated and is getting more costly. And unfortunately, we cannot, we're trying just to monitor. So then the cult of interests of the patient, then individual analytical biomedicine, and technological hyper specialization. And what's important, three mega trends. So then technological hyper specialization is occurring everywhere in education, in our practices in biotechnology area, and in all these approaches that we have been witnessing recently, and the new types of diagnostics and treatment in our new types of hospitals. So we're moving over from the evidence-based medicine to the value-based medicine. And so you can see, like, over a short period of time, so then in the last 50, 60 years, we can see drastic change. So the medicine has changed. And so I remember, so we worked in the medicine without rules, so where everyone treated the way they wanted. So then it became evidence-based medicine, and in the 80s and 90s, and in the 2000s, so we have the result-based medicine. So then the evidence-based medicine has become an instrument of the development of value-based medicine. And so the main trends that are at the foundation of what's happening today, remembering a very quick increase of expenditures in this area. So then certainly we need to be geared to the early diagnostics of the disease. So the earliest we can make a diagnosis, so the better, the cheaper it will be. So the early markers need to be identified. Prevention, so stop the complications, etc., at an early stage of the development of a disease. And so what we talk about, the value-based medicine, and the precision personalized, that's the next step, medicine. So when you remember that the genetic taken into account, specifics of every patient and each specific patient and his way of life, in order to build the strategy of how to follow such patient. And so then the next slide. We need to say that all this becomes real. Let's say becomes real. So there are lots of different medications, so whose action is based on genetics, epigenetics, and other technologies of genome editing, etc. So that becomes very expensive and very costly, but this is the reality of today's life, and we need to be aware of that. So we need to change. We need to change our infrastructure of medical support. And so we need just to conform to technologies in the area of their conformity to the legality and the law. And so by way of an example, I can give you some points how these new technologies bring us to new challenges. So about the trends, it's not only just getting more costly, and the technologies become more costly, but saying that the new industry digital industry, so then digitalization of healthcare, so medical providers, patients, other services, all getting together. So that's a new branch of industry with a great deal of financing. That's why we talk about the safety of data. So then the legal regulation and the law comes into play, and that is so these are the challenges. So next slide. and then the editing, the genome editing technology. 30 years ago, in 1987, it was born. 2013, so the first patient underwent the treatment successfully, and now in 2017, so then two medications have been registered, and to what extent we comply with these technologies, it's all related to the regulatory framework, legal framework, so criteria of efficiency, certification of equipment, and all other things that we discussed at the last meeting of the National Medical Chamber about the legal and regulatory regulation about the genome editing, and so then creating new bioproducts, etc. That needs to be brought into point and discussed, and so these are the challenges of new technologies. And what else? What's going to happen very rapidly? So on the basis of the introduction of IT and digital medicine, so we're talking not only about the predictive analytics. So the role of analytics certainly will grow, definitely, and it will not be predictive analytics, it will be prescriptive analytics. And so not only know what's going to happen, but how to do it in a way that it should happen this way and not another way. So that will be the main driver within the next several years down the road. And so then the medical analytics will become the foundation for the formation of new data. So that will be the foundation of new technologies of patients follow-up. So when we are going to abandon so the randomization of patients and trials, so we'll be just observing the patient. So we're just moving away from these randomized trials because it's so life is more difficult than the randomization and the medical trials aimed at the final result. So these are the specific data, how the system of decision-making support improves the quality of medical information at our hospital. So first, 78%. So then, so non-compliance, missing points, mistakes, errors. And then, so lots of things just have been happening before. Just we started to standardize, which is now 90%, and then non-compliance down to 40%. That's why all these things will become very important, and because all the analytics should be based on unstructured data, and it is the unstructured data that will become the basis for getting new information, new data, which will be the basis for developing new technologies for treatment. So what's the strategy of moving over to the value medicine? So starting from prevention. And so then the primary support and all the way to the hospital stay, and then following up the patient after the discharge from the hospital. So then remote manifestations for each patient of the medical complications in a patient. And so that's to pay for the treatment of a patient, so with a certain pathology, with a certain disease, and to pay for the final end result of a patient being cured. And that's where the doctor should be interested in more work, more procedures, and more efficiency, and more pay as a result. Very important to integrate all the patient flow processes so that they would be responsible for the final result. That can be done only using IT infrastructure and special analytical platforms. And so then we change the model from fee for service to fee for value, and so this is what is going to change. Then we need to say that by an example of coronary syndrome, acute coronary syndrome. So what is a good result? So if the hospital worked well or not? So then 30-day lethality, or maybe 10-year survival of the patient without any rebound. So who did not get a stent. And so they say that 88%, 90% of all the patients think that the percutaneous intervention actually may prevent the development of the next myocardial infarction, and the next heart failure. But what happens in reality is our data. So whether the patients are happy or not by the results of the treatment. If 1 week after the stenting, 75% of the patients are happy with the results, then look, in a month's time, so then the results become the same as those who were treated with stenting and those who were not treated with stenting procedure. Here are the results. So the satisfaction goes down. So this is the system of the treatment organization. So we finance each specific stage. So we need to change that approach. How to change this approach? So screening, so first diagnosis, emergency support. So this is all disparate. So we need to put it all together, and so we need to continue moving in this direction. I lost the sound. Okay. No, there's no sound. Я звук потерял. I lost the sound. Yeah. Okay, we don't know. Okay, so the number of treated patients and consulted patients. So then surgical activity. So what's important is we've made a breakthrough here. So in the area of high-tech interventions, so we are just leveling off now. So we're comparing with other countries. So in the last 10 years, so the number of coronary stenting went down 3 times in the last 10 years. So the money now is directed to other areas. So then the money is needed certainly for the healthcare system, and a lot of money, but we need to logically spend it. So then the system of payment, and so the quality and cost, salaries. So we need to keep this balance in. So because low quality, high, so average cost, average premium. So high cost, so same premium. So once we have so high cost and low result, so there should be a system of penalties. So the system of bonuses and payments so should certainly be in balance. So to make sure that the quality is high and the cost is not is relevant. So for example. So then it's more efficient. There are many surgeries. So, and the last thing I wanted to mention. So what's happening here? So could not have been implemented without the preparation of proper training personnel, and so we need just to develop to prepare, to train new doctors and professionals in every area of medicine, so that would welcome the challenges that are coming along. And that is why the content should be in full conformity with the paradigm of the medical development that we're having now. So yesterday I talked to one of the universities, who teaches, and actually those who are involved in R&D teach. And so because only those who are involved in R&D can provide the best state-of-the-art quality of training. And so that is why in future, so the importance of new digital type of individualization, value-based education. This is exactly the paradigm that we are looking at right now. So I'm just wrapping up. What's important? So we should not train a specialist for a specific profession. What's important is just that should be a person who is ready to learn, who is avid to learn, who wants just to go and get new knowledge and be ready to flexibly approach his knowledge and professionalism. So because specific narrow specialization is on the rise, and that is why so we need just to teach our future doctors just to learn. And so then about our experience. So my life and my viewpoints changed when 3 years ago. So we organized this scientific cluster. So we were joined together with the large universities of St. Petersburg, started to join hands and work on these medical issues, not only so then in education. So we started to work on education. The best practices of each university are used to prepare, to train a specific professional. So we fully realize that this synergy of the best institutes put together will certainly result in better result, because the best certain disciplines, rehabilitation and medical institutions, chemical competences should be acquired in the special institutes with chemical departments, etc. And so the exchange of experience. then our joint effort, international effort. Because without international integration, you cannot make any progress. So we have a joint program. So at Amsterdam University, so then IT, so we work in very close relations. So this new educational information technologies are extremely important for the training of future doctors. And the last slide. It's the key competences that will develop within the next several years to ensure the integrated development. So device, human factor, new materials, biotechnologies, medicines, cells, new materials, so prosthetic devices, IT, etc. So 2 years ago, I keep saying that. So Novartis, we are working with Novartis, so we're preparing for the value-based medicine joint project that we're going to carry out. We started this year. And so then the Committee on Healthcare, insurance companies, and our institute, they all fully realize that the cardiac failures and cardiac patients are very costly patients. Anything that has to do with heart, very costly patients. And so then, the mortality up to 30–40% in different centers. So mortality is very high, 30–40%. So we need just to create the register of educational programs for patients. In 2–3 years, that will certainly improve the response and reduction of morbidity and mortality, and saving 30–40%, saving money. Thank you very much. Thank you, Evgeny Vladimirovich. It's not. I have not forgotten what you said, and so everything that you spoke about has been implemented, deployed on your premises, and so because it's one of the challenges and one of the trends that all the medical systems of the world face, and the necessity to do everything to meet the proper requirements for the preparation and training of the doctors of the 21st century. So then there was the provision of the government published, and the center of Almazov gets the right to train students already. So then there was this the decree of the government, so whereby now they can train specialists. So now that's a new area of your activities. It's training specialists. This project of the Ministry of Health, and Igor Nikolaevich was the first deputy of Sergei Alexandrovich, and this is our joint project. And I think that for Russia, it will be very important and very good. And then all our foreign colleagues, when they know this, they see that integration of hospital and education. So that's a synergy. This is the best, and this is the order of the time. So to put these two things together, and so that's why the President of the Russian Federation supported this decision. So I'd like to give the floor to Philippe Bora, Global Director on Corporate Issues of Novartis. So the subject is big data and the system of healthcare.
So I actually see three main trends that are emerging. First one is extreme cooperation between industry and government. I just want to clarify, by the way, I'm Marwan Akar with MSD. This was supposed to be Novartis, right? Should I continue, or do you want to go to Novartis? Continue? All right.
Главное, чтобы это не происходило при обработке.
So as long as it doesn't happen when we process big data. So I hope there will be no glitches when we process big data. Right?
That I had. So going back to the three trends that I see, and there's others. First one is increased cooperation between governments or payers as well as industry. Historically, it's all been about negotiation to compromise. Now it's about negotiation to maximize. Meaning we're looking for win-win solutions, and ultimately the patient will benefit. Examples are innovative contracting, which you've heard about, and I'm sure you'll hear about again today. And it's not only in terms of value-based, but there is also risk sharing, there's price/volume. Other examples in this cooperation is transferring technologies that are complex, hence localization, in return for long-term procurement. Another example of win-win that we are witnessing in many, especially emerging markets. The second trend that I see is the rise of the patient. Patients are increasingly getting involved in managing their health. Because they're more educated, because of what's available online, because of what they can share with each other on social media. Of course, the risk in that is patients can get wrong information and make the wrong decisions. So the trick part here is how can the pharmaceutical industry support patients in their quest for this information within the current regulatory framework. The third trend that I see, of course, is digital transformation. And interestingly, I don't think we've all figured out what this is yet and what it's supposed to solve for completely and what are the KPIs. And since it's a starting point for most governments, if not all, it does create an opportunity for countries like Russia to be a pioneer or leader in digital transformation. And we're already starting to see some examples like telemedicine, like electronic patient registry, and communication systems across all participants in healthcare. So definitely Russia, as well as some other countries, have an opportunity to be pioneer in this field. Thank you.
Большое, уважаемые коллеги, я с удовольствием представляю нашего эксперта Марвана Акара, вице-президента.
So let me introduce our expert, Marwan Akar from MSD Pharmaceuticals. And before starting our panel discussion, our colleagues also participated. And we spoke about interaction of the public and business, public companies and businesses for competition, for technological solution. How's everything important? And let me pass the floor to Philippe Marois, speaking about the digital technologies. And we understand that digital technologies, not in the context, in some silo technological solutions, but as a comprehensive platform that is providing a breakthrough in the industry. Thank you.
Giving me the opportunity to share our view. I got problem with the translation, so that's why I could not react at the right time. Now I realize that I am not digitally so good right now. For Novartis, we see the digital revolution as a huge opportunity. First of all, we believe that in the field of healthcare, we are relatively late in the digitalization. And we try to understand why. We understand that mostly it's because the data are very sensitive. We are talking about health data. We are talking about personal data. We are also talking about the need for education of healthcare professionals to use digital tool and technology. Now, what we see is that there is an increasing will to accelerate the pace of digitalization. And I see in Russia with the electronic medical record a huge evolution and a strong political will to go into an accelerated digitalization. As we increase the digitalization, the amount of data collected is increasing exponentially. We all wear, those devices. We have electronic medical records. So there is a huge amount of data. The question is, what is the value of those data? The value of the data will help us to improve the quality of life because when you go to see a physician, you want to see that physician because he has a good experience. He has seen a lot of patients. With big data, we will multiply the experiences in order to help for better care. The other aspect is about increasing efficiency, and we know that with demography, we will have an increased need for treatment, for cost rising. Efficiency through big data is also a fantastic opportunity. So I would say in many regions, in many countries, this has become a major opportunity moving forward. So as a company, we are interested in big data because, first of all, we see a dramatic improvement into the productivity of our clinical trials. In the field of R&D, big data can be very helpful. The second is that with real-world evidence, we will not only be able to monitor side effects and improve our pharmacovigilance, but also we will be able in real world to confirm the results that we obtain in clinical trial setting. And then we will also be able to measure outcomes, and that's what matters. And what matters is outcome, and as we measure outcome, we will be able potentially to modify the way government will pay for treatment. Now we are paying by transaction, by pills, by volume. Tomorrow, we will increasingly be able to pay by outcome or by impact treatment will have on the healthcare system. So in order to use the big data, first of all, we need to, as I say, enhance digitalization. And I see that in Russia, the patients have owned their data. They are the ones to decide what to do with their data, and it's all about data privacy, which is very important to us. On the other hand, we also need to see how we can use the large database so that we can better understand the outcome, the statistics. And for that, we need also another set of regulation. We need another set of regulation in order to allow access to those data without violating the individual patient privacy. And we need to use balanced safeguards between the benefits of the data sharing and the individual ownership of those data. The other piece is how can we reuse those data in the field of research? When you do research, most of the time the patient has to sign a patient consent. Now, for example, the tissue sample or the data that we have collected needs to be reused for other set of research and to be broad enough so that we don't have every time to come back to the original patient to say, can we use your data for this type of research and this type of research? So we have to make it relatively easy because otherwise it will be impossible to look into those data. The third element that we ask from a regulatory point of view is to standardize the structure of the data, because if the collection of data is not structured, it will be very difficult to find out, outcomes and results. And finally, I think data can go cross-border. I think it's important, especially us as an international company. We do trials, for example, in, let's say, rare disease. And we need to collect data from many countries, and also regulation needs to allow the transfer of data from one country to the other, obviously with all the necessary safeguards, but I think it's important to see happening. I finish here with an example of a partnership we are doing in Russia with respect to collection of data, and in fact it's an initiative that we launched last year in the St. Petersburg under the city administration sponsorship and the Almazov Center. And it's a program that is dedicated to heart failure. And it's a program that helps patients to go through the right pathway in hospital, out hospital, as well as to combine the result of educational program, rehabilitation, and treatment. And for that, we are collecting all the data in one given disease set to be able afterwards to see how we can better improve the life of patients with heart failure. So we are very much excited to work in this area. And we need to build and help to build reliable and trustworthy framework for collecting, accessing, and using health data. Thank you.
Спасибо. Спасибо, Филипп. Уважаемые коллеги, мы продолжаем.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, colleagues. Let us continue our discussion. And we heard many times from Evgeny Vladimirovich speaking about the model of the institutions, so the cost management issue. I would like to pass the floor to Elizabeth Fowler, Vice President on Global Policies of Johnson & Johnson, a global expert who, before this company, was working in the U.S. authorities in various agencies, and she used to be a special assistant to the president on healthcare and economic policy in the National Economic Council. Elizabeth was involved in the reforms of the healthcare. Yeah.
This is a fantastic forum, and I'm always happy to come to Russia for these discussions on important healthcare matters. We talked a little bit about the role of healthcare and the importance of investing in healthcare. Healthcare is a means to increase life expectancy, to decrease child mortality, infant mortality, and innovation plays a really critical role in a lot of these advancements. If you think about HIV, for example, 20 years ago used to be a death sentence, and now today the life expectancy is about the same as someone without HIV. I think that's a huge advancement. At the same time, the dilemma for governments, not just in Russia but around the world, is figuring out how to afford the innovation and make sure that patients have access but still remain inside budgets. And so the cost issue is always front and center. We talked a lot about the movement towards value, and I appreciate your remarks. It's really critical, and looking at our place as we see governments around the world struggling with this question, the movement towards value is one of the most important approaches to try to address the cost problem. Some examples of the movement towards value in the U.S., for example, we're looking at shared savings models that the provider and the government will share in the savings provided that certain patient outcomes are met. In the UK, arrangements such as for pharmaceuticals, where if the drug works as we've promoted it to be, then we get paid one price, but if it doesn't produce the results, then it's rebated, some of that money is rebated back. It's not just on the pharmaceutical side. We see examples of movement towards value in the hospital care as well, with payments being withheld pending the measurement of certain outcomes. In Germany, a study looked at the outcomes and need for revision in hip replacement and knee replacement, and found that the variation was 18 times from the least performing hospital to the most highest performing hospital. And we looked at a solution like the one that Sweden has looked at, where about 5% of money from the hospital is withheld for hip and knee replacement, pending the outcome. And if the outcome is good, then the money is paid out, but certainly depending on whether the results are met. So a lot of good examples, and just here in Russia, I want to thank the Ministry of Health, both the staff and the leadership, for their role in moving in this direction. Thank you for your partnership, and I know we have a ways to go, that we're still working on some of those models, but we see a lot of progress and a lot of movement in that direction, and are very excited to play a part and be a partner in those discussions. I think some of the questions that remain, and these are questions that remain as you move towards these models: how do you measure value? How do you measure outcomes? Do we all agree on what the outcomes should be that we're measuring? And do we have a way to measure it? Are the big data there, as my colleague suggested? Do we have the data that gives us the ability to meet those, to determine whether we've met those outcomes? So I think we have a long ways to go, not just here, but around the world. We're on a journey on that path together, and as we move down that road, I guess the one thing I would like to emphasize is that industry sees itself as a partner in this pursuit, and we look forward to working further with the Ministry of Health and with our colleagues around the table as we move in this direction. So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to the rest of the discussion.
Спасибо большое.
thank you very much, Elizabeth. I would like to pass the floor to your colleague, Managing Director of the Structural Department of Pharmaceutical of Johnson & Johnson, Luis Diaz-Rubia. The floor is yours.
So thank you. So maybe I would like just to add a couple of things when it comes to explore new efficiencies in the healthcare system, and maybe on the area of how can we further partner to expand access. I do believe that we are living a great momentum in terms of innovation in the pharmaceutical industry, and the patients cannot miss the opportunity to be treated with the best treatments, and it's our obligation, and this is the way we see this as an industry. It is our obligation to find ways to make patients access. And on that, I think that on the first hand, we need to intensify the dialogue, and we are very grateful with the Russian government by having been able to sit around the same table and find win-win solutions, and solutions are less and less evident and needs to be tailor-made situation by situation and therapeutic area by therapeutic area. On that, we do understand that when it comes to give broad access to the whole population, we need to understand as a pharmaceutical industry that access needs to be regulated, and we are willing to sit together to establish indication-based approaches, indication-based pricing, and other mechanisms to make sure that the patients that can benefit the most out of our innovative treatments have the options available. And maybe another area in which we think that there is still opportunity, a lot have been done, but there is still opportunity, is about optimizing treatments. We do believe that an area like biomarkers is critical to make sure that we identify that patients that are going to respond to our treatments early on, to reduce waste and to optimize response. Adherence is still a big topic in the table, and we do believe that we can partner, and of course digital can help us to maximize outcomes when it comes to adherence. And all in all, we do believe that reducing waste should be a common agenda, and by reducing waste we will be able to free space for innovative compounds. Thank you.
Спасибо. Мы сегодня также затрагивали тему.
Today we're also talking about the public-private partnership, speaking about the global trends and opportunities with the clear, comprehensive, constructive collaboration to help us find a technological solution to ensure innovative development of the industry. So let me pass the floor to our expert, Senior Vice President of the Chinese Pharmaceutical Association, Executive Vice President of AstraZeneca, Leon Wang. So thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for giving this ground. And today I'm actually providing you with 3 slides. So actually this is a China example, but actually AstraZeneca has been investing in Russia, and we are doing local manufacturing in Kaluga, and we are very committed to Russian market, and we have a really strong presence here. So I think today I use a China example, but I think Russian has its own way to succeed, but I just want to bring my perspective from China. Next slide. So this is what we believe. Actually, AstraZeneca in China would believe a commercial innovation model is a win-win-win-win-win model, and using patient centricity. And because we want to get away from a selling model, selling pharmaceutical products to hospitals, sometimes through tendering to government, we really want to work together with healthcare institution and healthcare professional to help the patients. And by working with the Chinese government, we are not only using technology, but also we use our 3 early-stage molecule to invest into a $130 million research and development institution, and it's a AstraZeneca and the China government joint venture. And also we have another 4 local molecule being developed with local pharmaceutical company co-developing, and that will be launched first in China and then to the globe. and simultaneous development. So we have one company in China, a multinational, have 7 new drug first in class. And this is one way. And then we also think how, as a pharmaceutical company, we are not just one angle solution. It's providing drug to the patients, but this is simply not sufficient. We would like to develop a creative business model by each therapeutic area and to benefit patients. So next slide. So with this concept behind the mind, and we work with the China government establishing AstraZeneca China Commercial Innovation Center. And there we promote healthcare commercial innovation. It's like an iPhone. For every disease, every year we launch one version. It's like version 1 diabetes, version 2 asthma treatment. So every disease area we are incubating a new way of treatment and how we want to increase patient benefits. So and also this is a part of the China Health China 2030 initiative, and a lot of good outcome from this commercial innovation center actually not only prosperous in China, but also implanted outside of China. So just one example, recently we built up 1,000 pediatric asthma treatment center in Asia, outside China. So many successful examples actually are going together with the China government Belt and Road Initiative. So next slide. So here there are many dimensions of this one-stop healthcare innovation center. So actually we work with Wuxi government, which is very close to Shanghai. I really encourage you to visit, and I really invite Russian government and healthcare institution to visit our Wuxi Innovation Center. It's a joint collaboration with the government in Wuxi. And last year, in one city in Wuxi, the total revenue of Internet of Things already reached $16 billion in that single city. So the city asked us to develop a healthcare Internet of Things by using Internet of Things technology to help develop healthcare patient benefits. So this is incubation and a demonstration center organized by therapeutic areas, by asthma, diabetes, chest pain center, lung cancer, so prostate cancer, so a lot of therapeutic area using patient centricity ideas. And because we are working with many diagnostic company and open platform, cloud technology, accommodating all the sensor and phone platform, and we can collect big data and using alternative intelligence to help the patients and the doctor to be convenient. So we actually launched Dr. Yu to treat diabetes, and Dr. Herbal Medicine to make herbal medicine treatment very individualized and automatic. And also for lung cancer patients and acute coronary syndrome, actually we work with Dr. Link, a big data company in China, and IBM Watson in China to develop alternative intelligence to help the patients. But sometimes we talk about a lot of technology, but the patient actually doesn't need only hard technology. One day we realized we organize a lot of long-term surviving lung cancer patients. A lot of cancer become chronic disease. And we want them to write down their novel of their disease journey. And at the end, we combine their disease journey into one book and invite the drama movie director to help them. They become actors and actresses in a show to report their disease journey and how they think psychologically to motivate the newly diagnosed lung cancer patients, telling them that lung cancer can be managed as a chronic disease. So a lot of lung cancer patients at the end of the show telling us that many of them actually are frightened to death when they heard this news. So they need some positive energy. So I think a lot of technology, a lot of precision medicine way, but actually patient is the heart. Whatever they need, sometimes they just need the food advice. Sometimes they need psychologically being positive. And also, because by working together with the whole industry ecosystem, we work with China Diagnostic Digital Industry as Internet Healthcare Alliance. So AstraZeneca and the Chinese government are driving this industrial alliance to promote a different version of invention behind every disease treatment diagnosis model and the follow-up model. So, and also we work with the local university to open the Internet of Things major and healthcare major and pharmacy major, so by developing young talents of tomorrow. And every year there are tens of thousands of government officials and healthcare professionals from China and also outside China visiting this center in just 6 months. So next. So at the end, just to summarize, actually by leveraging the diagnostics and device and digital, and we really want to help the patients and introducing this new version of how we manage patients disease area by disease area, and also try best to better understand patients. It totally changed our business model from selling to patient centricity, whole patient journey, total solution management. Thank you.
Спасибо, господин Ванг. И в продолжение вашего выступления я хотел бы обратиться.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. And following up on your presentation, I would like to turn to the head of a group of companies of Ernst & Young on consulting services and transaction of companies on biological industry. So today at the business breakfast, speaking about the public health, you presented the research of your company. And an important part of your research spoke about the opportunities, the potential, and you were talking about interaction of public and private circles. So could you please briefly talk about the results of your research to the audience at this section and the practices?
Thank you for a chance. And I'll speak briefly. So we discussed the results of investments in pharmaceutical industry, successful and not very successful cooperation between state and business, government and business, and what needs, what requires, so to improve this cooperation. As we mentioned earlier, by many panelists, so then we certainly borrow on international practices and we put them to efficient use, and so because we have been borrowing just on this good experience, and so we're discussing, and this between the government and the pharmaceutical industry, pharmaceutical companies, so we're discussing this new co-financing models that are actively employed in many regions. But the model of risk sharing, unfortunately, so they spoke about, and they launched the first pilot projects were launched, but unfortunately the companies are ready to implement these projects to send risk-sharing products, but unfortunately, so the imperfect regulatory framework, and there is a lot of criticism, so because the risk-sharing contracts, so for different medications, and especially so then the mandatory drug list, so that actually reduce competition. So those are the stumbling blocks in the area of risk-sharing contracts. Although just we do have some very good experience, very good examples of cooperation between the state and businesses. So then five special investment contracts so were signed last year between the regions and the pharmaceutical companies. And so with the participation of Ministry of Health, and so the companies commit themselves to invest in production of medications, which is important, so that the access is much easier to new medications because of the local production. So we'll see how it works, but for the time being, the expectations are quite high, and the first results are good about these special investment contracts. So then another instrument that the government of Moscow has put to good use is long-term contracts with the medication producers. BioCAD won the tender, and BioCAD commits itself to make a number of investments so then in exchange for the demand guarantee. So then so the state gets investments and access and to new medications, and the pharmaceutical companies use the insurance so they can guarantee a good demand for their medicines, and so to build their strategy of the presence in Russia in a more logical way. So then we have had some good examples. So the cooperation between the companies that manufacture medical equipment, so about the localization of their production being localized, and certainly probably it's worthwhile mentioning some good examples of the joint partnership programs. So Fresenius, Philips that are implementing. So the dialysis centers, vascular centers are being built, and but there are very few because the level of tariffs and attraction for different services. So it's very important because they implement this where the tariffs allow to recoup the investment in short term, because the format of this instrument has been properly regulated and formalized, and so that's why we're just launching these new programs and see how efficient they will be. Thank you. Discussing the way our discussion is unfolding. So the expert opinion was unanimous in saying that a patient-centered medical system, medical support system is, and the professional medical community is the way just to move forward. And I'm happy just to present to you the Doctor of Medical Sciences, Professor Mr. Rashal, international expert. So I spoke about he's an international expert in national medical chambers. So he unites the regions and professional medical community. And so I would like to get the information from you about the role of professional medical community in the area of innovative development of our industry. Dear friends, I'd like to thank for the invitation. Huge thanks, because so I've been very much interested, and in spite of the fact that we kind of were mostly concentrating on the pharmaceutical component of our business, and certainly the desire of some companies' representatives to talk about their companies and what they do. So that's kind of we migrated from the main discussion that we spoke about. But otherwise, the National Medical Chamber is the largest institution of Russian medical workers. So the majority of the regions voted for joining this chamber, and so it's working very actively now. Thus, I can introduce Vice President of the National Medical Chamber to you, Mr. Shlichto. So this is our contribution to the operation of this forum is quite considerable. And I've been listening very carefully what Professor Shlichto was saying, and I thought that maybe we need about 30, 40 Shlichtos. We need to replicate those guys so with their respective centers, and then we would get the ball rolling, and we would get this business underway. But so we have this representatives, pharmaceutical companies, industries. And so we have put together a special committee because we want just to take care of some ethical questions and feel the way of cooperation. And so then we've been doing that for a long period of time, and I'd like to invite those interested parties who want just to be in contact with the medical community. Please join us, and we'll be working together very actively and moving forward on these issues. And we have. It's not that easy, as it's never been easy to work in Russia. So we lived through the heady 90s, and then we have lived through the inflation, hyperinflation. We've lived through the high oil prices, and we've lived through it all. You know what's happening in our economy right now. And so that's why, but nevertheless, in spite of all these obstacles and challenges, we have been moving forward and making good progress. And so we continue to work in this area. And I keep stressing the fact that this dependency on investments in healthcare. So with the results, we need just to make them commensurate. So investment and results, so that is why we're quite proud of what we have so far accomplished, and so we're inspired by the president saying so that to increase financing of medical care system, because it's certainly not enough, and so we're not happy with the calculation of the Ministry of Finance and even Kudrin's proposals. We're not happy with those calculations because our plans for the innovative development of our medical, so we need at least to spend 5% of GDP on medical. So that's to move from 3 to 5%, to 5% of GDP, and then so it will come to pass and will become realistic. And so we have full understanding and cooperation of the stakeholders. And we spoke about that. So we need to raise financing. And so then the cadres, professionals. So we need to find good doctors. So then there was a meeting of the government recently where Mrs. Skvartsova made an excellent presentation at that government meeting, and I hope that everyone understood what the members of the government when they listened to her. But she spoke about the innovative development, and she spoke about this. I hope that everyone understood what she had to say, and so I had that feeling. So when Lenin in the 20s spoke about the plan of the electrification of the country, and so at that time no one thought that he was crazy, but actually so the country was electrified a few decades later, and that is why those the frontline field medical workers. There was a great deal of shortage of medical professionals and general practitioners, and so we need to address. We need just to look into the future with confidence, because this is actually we are not saying that there will be paradise in future, but that's important that these things come into point and we're discussing them. And I think that we'll break through, we'll succeed eventually. And now, so we're reconsidering the entire system of training and teaching specialists of medical workers, and so then post-education. So then not once in 5 years. So we need to do the retraining, but continuous, sustainable. So then advanced course enhancement of professionalism on a sustainable. Professional standards are being reconsidered. So the educational standards are being reconsidered as well. So we need to have state-of-the-art specialists in all these areas, because without having good medical workers and GMP workers, we will not be able to succeed. So then the certification, qualification categories, so we need to identify that. So we have missed a lot, and now just we are shuffling, reconsidering it, because the cadres is the basis, the foundation. So medical because the people that you train are handpicked, so they are unique, and so they're the best, and so they need to put in proper incubator. We need to develop that, because without financing and without good training, we won't be able to succeed. So I wish you good health, and thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Leonid Mikhailovich. I'd like to give the floor to Alexei Rapik, President of Business Russia, and co-chair of HealthNet within the framework of National Technological Initiative. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm happy just to hear such words from another co-chair. So then when we just were putting together this new project, so when we started this project together with him. Let me just go back a little bit and comment on what has been said earlier. So first, I would like, let's put it this way, I want to debate one point, or to continue discussing several good points. What Evgeny Vladimirovich spoke about, so it was a comprehensive presentation. I would like to debate some points. And so there was, when will medicine become cheaper? Because it's getting more and more costly because of the technological perfection and complexity of the medicine. That concerns everybody. And so it's a problem for the patients and taxpayers and the state and the medical community as well. In my view, so what we see this new sustainable trend to increase costs. That's a standard trend that we're observing right now. And so that is very disturbing, because within the next 5 years, so when the annual growth will be above inflation 5-6%, so then the World Economic Forum stated that. And so in this view, it means that the new technologies so we'll be adding to the costs, and what for telemedicine attempt to reduce costs. So they will never just balance off. So it means that within the next 5 years, life is going to get tough, and so now we are. So then the kind of pre-revolutionary period, technological pre-revolutionary period, exactly the same stage when we were just in the 70s and the 80s, so the IT industry, so can be likened to the IT industry of the 70s and 90s. So when the Moore law was actually was justified by the increase of computer power, and actually there's the more growth eventually brought about the fact that that actually so some computers were not could not even countries could not afford, but now just as a result of this more progression, so now we have these computers in the form of smartphones in every person's pocket. And that is why, so this revolutionary breakthrough is possible to occur in medical world. Healthcare. So for the reduction of cost of sequencing of human genome. So then the speed is much higher than the Moore's law. It's hundreds of millions of dollars are turning into hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars. So this is this editing and then the genetic manipulations and gene editing, so the cost has gone down, so by a factor of 1, 2, so by magnitude of 1. And so the reduction of the cost of big data operation so is drastically going down as well. So as the capability computational powers are as they go up, so the cost will go down. So then the artificial intellect. So the chairman of the government of the Russian Federation spoke about that this morning, but that certainly will allow to reduce costs very considerably on what's very expensive right now. And effectively, we can conclude that the key issue, I'm not talking about the global trend, but I'm talking about the Russian trend right now. So where is Russia here, and what position should we take? So should we just sitting on our hands policy we need to employ and wait until other countries will have achieved certain results, which will result in the reduction of costs? Should we wait, just sitting on the fence policy, or try just to occupy a worthy place among the leaders who determine the rules of the game? So where it's not possible just to do it for one medical company or for one pharmaceutical industry, and cooperate, global cooperation, and add value to the effort. So right away, just thinking about many clients, not only Russian clients, but thinking globally. So what's the approach? Which one is better? So for me, the answer is on the surface of the water, and because for me, I'm going just to celebrate so the 25th anniversary of my presence in this industry next year, and so we want to be proud not only of our past, not only of our present, because there is a lot to be proud of, but we want to be proud of our future, and we should not miss this opportunity, because we cannot pass up on this opportunity. So since all the speakers so were very laconic, and so let me say a few words what HealthNet does. I don't want just to repeat, but we need to see where we are, and so that you could get your bearings and talk more about this. The technological trends. So it is true that so we continue to develop new types of therapies and treatment in the country and within the framework of smaller companies, more advanced technological companies, and smaller companies, university companies. But I want just to take it one step higher, and I would like to agree with Evgeny Vladimirovich that only those who are in the middle of in the thick of R&D will become good medical workers, and as those who know the practical approaches of healthcare healthcare system, only they would be able to get their bearings, understand how to move forward and how to work and be. So that would be good testing ground. So they need to be all involved in theory and practice and R&D and treatment. And so we talk about the new types of therapies. So then at the end of the day, we're abandoning so affecting the target, for example, the cancer cell. So we do the cascade of actions. It's a new cascade. It's a new approach, completely new way out. Once we understand how to, you understand our instructions manual, so we'll be able just to remove the errors in the management process. And that's a new trend. So now we just understand, we're beginning to understand how the complex systems in the human body work out. So we spoke about oncology. So almost addressed the issue, but made big progress in cardiovascular diseases, great progress. So that's how the system works. So with oncology, it's much more challenging. But the breakthrough in the treatment of oncology, immune oncology, and other breakthroughs. So then cooperation with the global companies and our own development. So medical R&D centers and Russian scientists. And it's great. So we're coming to a point as when the cancer stops being a disease, when we talk about only palliative treatment, because or chronical plane, when cancer just goes on chronical plane. So like retrovirus therapy. So we're beginning to think less and less about that, and because the treatment practice definitely, and this is not so tragic, and so sometimes we achieve good results and good response for oncology treatment. The second is the trend for artificial organs, tissues, and cells. So this is the second hottest topic where a lot has been said. And so this is the next stage will be regenerative cell technologies, and then artificial organs and 3D printing. And so now just it sounds like science fiction, but it's coming. So it's coming very close to us, and it's very close to us now. When we talk about big data, and so then Philippe Varandas spoke at length about that, and I don't want to repeat him. So that's even now. So we have all these representatives of the big pharma here. So the digital officers. So the key position, and it's integral importance, like a chief compliance officer, chief financial officer. So chief digital officer is as important as those two guys. And this is the classical response that the world, it's a manifestation of the quickly changing world. Chief digital officer, and then the trends. So we're going just to speak more and more about the personalized medicine, precision medicine, personalized medicine, and this is something that is related with new knowledge, types of knowledge, better understanding, big data related, structured data, and new approaches to address issues. And certainly we need to speak about the convergence of different scientific disciplines, putting them all together, because one doctor is not capable of to do what a doctor and a mathematician can do. And if a doctor and a mathematician is supported by other disciplines and other knowledge, so then certainly our prowess, professionalism, so then the synergy will not be 1, 2, or much more. Then let's talk about the trends. So there is a big block that I cannot miss. So regulatory framework, new trends. So clinical trials now. So we need to build them not around the drugs or medicines, but around the patients, because there are too many. Yeah, so too many. There's too much personal so we need to target it in a better way. So that's quite challenging. It's not the story when some time ago, so our IT colleagues went through some time ago when they said do it yourself, So when everyone just were putting together their computers in their garages. So we don't want this happen in medicine, because it's scary when everyone in his own garage, with lack of education, professionals are trying just to get into this realm of fine knowledge that medicine is, and so then the twits in the networks that I'm doing by hacking, and I added my own genome. This is horrible. So it brings about some. It's irresponsible, and this should not be done. So because one should not get involved in the things that have a high level of understanding and more complicated realm of proper understanding of the essence of the matter. And so this personification, personalization, so we need, so the patient centricity is very important, and in the regulatory framework. So that we should not wait until so that the only patient. So will not wait to leave. Will not leave to see this, and so that is why the trends about the registration of orphan drugs, or the breakthrough medication. So we cannot wait for the registration certification, because many patients will die before they are registered. And so then when they just adaptive designs, quicker research, acceleration of registration. So by the way, the reform in China, medical reform in China, so makes this breakthrough, and so we probably can listen to their experience and introduce these initiatives. So then the president suggested as a model regulatory framework in the new areas of global competitiveness, in the new area of possible economic and medical breakthroughs. And the last very important thing, so there is a social medical trend, a social and public trend. It's there. So shared economy, risk sharing, it's all correct. It's all right. But then, so then we need just first. So we need to think not about the healthcare system, but about health. We need to think about healthy people. We need to stop. We need just to shift. So the reactive to proactive approaches. So to patient treatment, and we need to be responsible for ourselves and think about healthy people, prevention. Because if we abandon immunization, and then all of a sudden we want to get no vaccinations, and then all of a sudden just to make people to make the government pay our sick leaves, and if you don't do the vaccination, this is not fair. And so that's why we need to be responsible. So then through excise taxes or co-payment or other things, so can be introduced, so that we have some mutual cooperation, mutual liability for the things we're doing and the government is doing. And so I remember the Coca-Cola presentation at our first business breakfast. So if something toxic is not bad, and so they're trying to sell us toxic things as food, so let's write about it. So that's right. So this, for example, Coca-Cola results in cancer is the same. So we need just to identify in the labels the level of risk, and then people will decide whether they want to take that risk and willing to accept it or not. And so that's why, so we're changing with the times, and I really hope that jointly this convergence of science, practical healthcare efforts, business, economics, then public, people, community, countries, so will bring about the required, the searched for results that our next generation will be proud of. Thank you. Thank you, Alexei. I'd like to go back to the beginning of our presentation. So when you said, let's sitting on defense policy, or just we should not wait. Because sitting and waiting, it's not our approach, not our concept. We do have representatives of the largest pharmaceutical companies, Russian pharmaceutical companies, present today here with us. And when we talked to international experts, we spoke a lot at length about the localization of industries, medical pharmaceutical industries, and so development of breakthrough technologies, groundbreaking technologies, pharmaceutical industry, and I and my colleagues working at the Ministry of Healthcare. So we can look in the future with a great deal of confidence and say that now that our pharmaceutical industry meets the requirements of practical healthcare system, and our task is to ensure the sustainable development of medical technologies into everyday practices, because this is the result that will give us synergy. And so we're done with our experts, the presentations of experts, and now we have a chance to make short comments of all those who are present here, so concerning the topics and subject matters that we came out with. And but first, I want to give the floor to the Deputy Minister of Industry of the Russian Federation, Mr. Tsibo. Good afternoon, colleagues. So wonderful discussion. Thank you. I'd like to thank the organizers for the invitation. And so I even just pointed it out. So a wonderful Professor Evgeny Vladimirovich's presentation, a wonderful one. So when he spoke about the creation, development of the infrastructure for telemedicine, translation medicine, and involving so all the stakeholders, so research institutions, medical institutions, then certainly the high educational institutions, so then to put them together just so that they would complement each other and add to the competences of each other. And so then, Alexei's input was very compelling as well. And so then the trend towards personal medicine. So when we do not speak about the specific treatment of certain disease, but treating the patient. So this is the fait accompli. So then this complementary nature. So digital technologies development, so which give us additional opportunities to study different processes in the human body at a different level, and putting to better use the new methods of diagnostics, when the diagnostics is related to therapy. So one is the continuation of the other, and Evgeny Vladimir spoke about that, and with the help of these new devices, new equipment, and jointly with the medications. So we get absolutely different equipment plus medications, that the quality of treatment goes up. And so this is the new trend. So this is where in future, so when, because this year, let me remind you, so we are submitting the changes in our state Pharma 2020 program. So we're going to make some changes. All the experts, market participants, please participate in this discussion before it is made, it is passed as law. And so we plan these changes in three main blocks. First, change in the support of one's own developments, R&D effort, and developing our own medications with partnership with the global players, and supporting our own initiatives, developing of new preparations and new medications. So then the development of cell technologies, and remembering that today in the pharmaceutical industry, so the application of cellular technologies is on everybody's tongue. It's a fait accompli too. And so, for example, so when they registered recently, so then a new vaccine, so for the cancer of cancer vaccine has been approved and introduced and certified. And then in future, so these technologies will be developing much faster, and so then there's a new group of new so protein-based medications, and so biomedications will be developed related with the therapy of nucleic acids, small molecules treatment, etc. So the new things, and so then we see the vaccines and some monoclonal antibodies being developed very rapidly. So biomedications, monoclonal antibodies, in my view, is one of the most promising so groups of biomedications. So with very wide, comprehensive way of applications. So new molecules appear, developed, and so that is why we certainly will concentrate on that in future. And then I cannot fail not to mention, so besides support of R&D, of our own R&D effort, just that we do jointly with the Ministry of Health, that we support with development production of biocellular medications. So certainly we'll concentrate on the areas which is not probably the basic trend in public health system, but from the global viewpoint of medical transformation of medical circulation of products. So that certainly impacts the competitiveness of Russian pharmaceutical industry. I talk about the exports of Russian medications. So that will be one of the main areas that we're going to concentrate on within the next 10 years. Why? Because the next program will be referred to as Pharma 2030, and so then the time horizon that we put at the basis of these assumptions provides for the support of export-oriented companies that will sell medications and supporting the exports of Russian products. I hope that it's not only just Russian-made medications and manufactured.
And at local sites set up with the support of the large global players. So that's exactly the direction that we hope to see in the future. So from the social responsibility point, so as a Ministry of Industry and Trade, we intend to integrate deeply into the medical community that we started recently. And our target is to participate in the largest medical congresses and forums and involve the production sector, the manufacturing sector, and developers into the professional healthcare community. And I want to thank my colleagues from the MOH and Leonid Mikhailovich, who involved us into the National Medical Chamber where we actively intend to continue discussions and facilitate the main thing, to improve the quality of life of our people. Thank you, Sergei Anatolievich. Colleagues, so today we're talking about the subject of switching to the patient-centric model of healthcare, and it's important to estimate the results from the point of view of specific patient, and the great role belong to the quality. So we cannot underestimate the quality of healthcare. So I ask the representative of Federal Services on Surveillance in the Healthcare, Mr. Murashko. So, dear colleagues, so we started today in the morning with questions speaking about public health care and public health care system. And today, so we speak about the healthcare arrangement. So today, the surveillance agency has totally shifted, changed the point of view from control to prevention of abuse and other things. So let me give you a comment to illustrate. So for the first time in the history of Roszdravnadzor, we made a movie on the heart stroke treatment. We are now finishing the movie, and within the next 2 months, we hope to get it. It's for the doctors, for the cardiologists and nurses and patients who might see, so that everyone could see how the hospital should look, the healthcare should be provided, the way the manipulations should be made, should be done, provided. So this is a new step. Speaking about the medical products, so at all the recent forums and conferences of regulators from various countries confirm convergence between products, between the drugs and cellular cell products and medical products and regenerative medicine. So we are now talking about the new format of regulation and the products of regeneration type used in healthcare practices. And today many speakers mentioned is the digital world. When they say big data, and that's very close to my heart, and people get used to the terms. both the regulators and the healthcare professionals and the real data and the evidence that we get in the process of post-registration observation. One of the ways that should definitely get the development is pharmaceutical surveillance, and both surveillance and the data we're getting from the treatment, from the healthcare. And we keep getting the data, and many organizations introduce benchmarks and monitor stages of healthcare from whatever registration and passport stage to the syringe and the speed of manipulation, and then they provide conclusions on the criteria developed by the MOH, and we have a totally different format. We're getting a new format of medicine. Unfortunately, we cannot introduce it everywhere overnight, but our goal is to make it available in every medical organization. So in the industrial community, we are used to specific design, taste, flavor, or type. And developing healthcare, we also need to come to standard format and standard manipulations. So say Moscow is very much advanced in digital computer technologies, and today we can perform intelligence analytics in flat format, like the direct dependency of axes, X and Z. But we can make a 3D intelligence and analysis when we actually trace the dependency of the treatment from diagnostics and the equipment. And this is a totally different format of data and analytics that allows us today to plan efficient cost. And these are real breakthroughs, so we cannot show it immediately to everyone, but I guess Moscow is going to share and regions may copy. And this is a totally different format when they manage to use the equipment and transfer it to the type when they see it, how the physicians, the healthcare professional load, so when he can see images from various devices and when they can actually share the load and reduce the burden on a specific professional and compare the load on a doctor and the way he works. So certainly the medical costs that we discussed today keep growing. Because the new technologies have to be used and implemented in healthcare. And this system of state procurement does not stay idle. We know where we can save, where it's possible to save. And today, the information and analytics system on purchasing, procurement, systematization, logging, need a systemic approach, and many people use them as buzzwords. And so today, healthcare keeps developing, evolving. I believe that we are on the right track, and we need everyone to get involved. And the babies, the infant mortality is the lowest in the history of Russia. And many countries are behind Russia. And the population life expectancy and mortality is the trend that we need to follow. And wrapping up, I confirm that we are willing to cooperate, collaborate in new areas, in bringing new innovative products. Our labs are certified in the European Healthcare Agency and the Quality Directorate, and we perform certain tests on the pre-registration stage. So I want to draw your attention to the Russian-made products, even the innovative products that really open new doors in healthcare. And today with Sergei Tsib, manually we just bring them to the market entry moment. So the initiatives should keep developing, and Russia will keep promoting them in the international markets. I thank you very much. Thank you, Mikhail Albertovich. So let me pass the floor for further discussions and evaluation and the conclusions to the Deputy Minister of the Healthcare of Russia, Sergei Krylov. Yeah, good afternoon, dear colleagues. Will you allow me to start my brief speech with gratitude? I want to express my gratitude to the Gaidar Forum because this year, for the first time, actually, we have the patient-centric discussion and patient-centric investment. And today, the business breakfast, we were saying that the economic growth depends on the human capital and investment into this capital. And healthcare efficiency is the basis for the sustainable public development. And today, we have a real expert discussion. And MOH keeps working and primarily bases our activity on the expert community. And so we heard Michael and Veronica and other speakers, and we created the quality assessment system in our healthcare. How did we create it? On the basis of clinical recommendations developed by the expert community, discussed at the relevant conferences and forums of experts, and we developed the specific criteria. So I believe that today we have a wonderful panel discussion, because on one hand we are kind of drawing the line, on the other hand we are giving a start to the global trends in healthcare. So today we name the main trends in the Russian healthcare. We don't need to treat a disease. We need to take care of a patient, a person. So it's 4P medicine that we are starting, to... let me show you what's that. First P is prevention. P, public health. Public or healthy way of life. So propensity to lead a healthy way of life, and the laws that we passed, like anti-tobacco legislation, and the campaigns that we carry out on educating and creating awareness, and sports, and specific prevention, including immunization, vaccines. We have one of the best national calendar for 12 diseases, 12 infections in our vaccine calendar. And we plan to expand and adding another 2 vaccines and vaccinations from 2 more diseases. And now we are working on it together with the Ministry of Industry and Trade and together with our pharmaceutical business, to make sure that these vaccines would be made in Russia or localized in Russia. So the next, personification, is the second P, personification. And today we heard from other speakers that individual diagnostics, sequencing of genome, quick sequencing of the genome, study of metabolomics and proteomics of every single person, of an individual, creating individual drugs for specific persons, vaccines, cell vaccines, individual transportation means on the monoclonal antibodies basis, and individual prescription of therapy and monitoring. The third P is predictive medicine. Yes, we are now approaching the time when quick sequencing of genome gives us a forecast of manifestations of various situations. We can either predict and postpone or even modify the genome. And the fourth P is most important is participation, co-participation of a patient in supporting his health and active longevity. And when a citizen should really take care to keep his health in a good condition, That's very important, and the MOH, Ministry of Health, offers it for everyone. And in order to make it true, we need to improve our activities. So the three components is infrastructure, methodology, and HR, people, professionals. We are now approaching the new understanding on infrastructure. So after the new law on telemedicine, we started creating the cloud digital infrastructure of our healthcare. And in 2016 and 17, we started on the basis of national medical centers, 21 medical centers. We create departments of permanent 24/7 telemedicine department that perform around-the-clock consultancies, methodology. Now we are making the system vertical to connect to the regional centers, including system doctor-to-doctor connection and opportunity to consult, to get the second opinion in case of severe diseases, and study the result of research in the databases. And the next stage, we are going to, in 2018, we shall improve the interaction between the patient and the doctor. And for that, we need to prepare many things, including the introduction of gadgets that will help us to monitor the condition of a patient, including microsensors, including the permanent monitoring blood pressure systems, and the estimation of the heart activity. And this is a new next generation infrastructure in our healthcare. And now, speaking about the methodology, on one hand, we're getting the new methods. On the other hand, we used to have the 16 cross-section MRT. It used to be unique. Now 256 is a standard for the third-tier medical institutions. So along with the upgrade of the existing methods, we developed new methods of diagnostics, and I mentioned them. It's like the sequencing of genome, and study the genes and exchange and fixing even the genome, and accurate diagnostics, early diagnostics, and administering of proper and targeted therapy. And the next important matter is people, professionals. We may invest lots of money. We may change all the hardware. But once we don't have people who are savvy, who have deep, new, modern professional skills. On the other hand, we need new professionals in new areas and new existing appearing professions. And now in Almaz companies, we're going to start a new trend, preparing new types of professionals in this country, when the future doctors will be trained next to the practitioner and the scientist. And another important aspect of teaching the professionals is ethical component. We now can change the genome of a person. We are capable, we possess the personal data, we can manage personal health. So where's this ethical threshold that you should not cross? And we need to consider it in our educational standards that will be developed. So everything can be done if we build the innovative chain properly. And that's exactly what we are now doing in the Ministry of Health. That is the search for the fundamental discoveries, and then identifying the proper data, then innovative development when we prescribe, when we have the accurate, the precise roadmap with the result, like in the form of a registered drug or registered method of diagnostics or technology or a product. And this new knowledge that we get will be practiced in the healthcare provider institution. So this is what the law number 323 stipulates, and that's how we create the new high-tech methods of innovative medical care. And the methods that we started copying, disseminating, and then the new methods are included in the state programs. And today we have 1,470 medical institutions covered with this medical services state program. And today we have been discussing the modern healthcare requiring high budgets. And at the business breakfast and here at this session, we understand that there will never be enough money for everything in any country, not Russia alone. But I want to tell you, and MOH supports the idea that we need to develop public-private partnership and interaction. In MOH, under the minister, Mrs. Skvortsova, so we have a special coordination council on PPP. We have been working for the last 4 years, and we help the regions with the methodologies, with the seminars, and considering best practices of public-private partnership and interaction. And we consider both practices, and we arrange competitions. Actually, we had 3 competitions, and at the Healthcare Week last December, we awarded the winners, and the Ministry of Health has always been open for the private initiatives. And I say again and again, that private medicine and paid medicine are different things. Private medicine can work under the state guarantees, but it will provide medical services free of charge within the state guarantee program. It's important to make sure that this private medical health care is free and comprehensive and has high quality, provides high quality services. And we have all the initiatives in our MOH. Within the current legislation, we provide every assistance. So I guess I have exhausted my message, but I want to express my gratitude to Igor Garmanyan, to his wonderful moderator's effort. I have not yet finished. I want to thank Sergei Alexandrovich. I was happy to hear that all the experts and speakers today at the panel discussion spoke about the new ways of development, the tools that we are going to use, the policies of the ministry, and the support of the MOH. And so I would like to take a brief minute to draw the line. We were talking about the global trends in healthcare, and the medicine of the 21st century, the value-based patient-centric model, with the main goal of innovative development with highly qualified and dynamic professionals, and certainly active inclusion of the patient in keeping his health in a good condition. So I would like to thank all the international experts who made the effort to come here and participate for their active contribution, and wish us all every luck and good health and prosperity.